Tri-City Sports Now, you got Marky Bilson here. And 1420 WEMB Sports Radio is the radio station you're listening to, either on jetbroadcasting.live, AM 1420. Maybe you're watching on Facebook Live. Maybe you're doing that on archive or live, as the case may be. All right. Hey, I was talking a little bit, I had mentioned that it's slugging versus skating, that the Bruins are the most penalized team in the National Hockey League that is left in the playoff series. Now, they defeated the Hurricanes 5-2 up in Boston last night, but they struggled for a while. And this was Marcus Johansson tying the game up at 2.
Marchand scraped it to the far point. Krug, high slot Krejci. Left of the net now Krug. Back up top for Krejci. Right circle Marchand. One-timer out in front. They score! Marcus Johansson camped at the top of the crease, able to get the loose change and buries it. A power play goal. Bruins 2, Canes 2.
Okay, the deal there was that Jordan Staal was sent off for roughing in the opening minute of the third period, 2-1 Canes at the time. And then you heard Johansson scoring the goal. And it came off of a rebound of Brad Marchand, the chatty Brad Marchand, who also happens to be not only one of the few 100-point, the only, I think, 100-point scorers left in the playoffs, but also, I think, 95 penalty minutes for him on this year. And then, before you can say, Marcus Johansson, there's another penalty. It's given to Dougie Hamilton for roughing. And so that means the Bruins, who are supposed to be the team that, is going to rough you up, well, they get another power play and they don't waste any time.
Off the trough, Pesce motored it over to the far side, held in by the Bruins. Far corner, it's centered. Marchand centered, fire, they score! Patrice Bergeron took the dish into the sled and slapped it by Mrazek as he tried to square up another shot. A power play goal for the Bruins. They now jump in front 3-2.
You may see the final is 5-2. It wasn't that close.
Left side at center ice, Slavin set it up for Niederreiter. The Bruins get command of it. It's kicked toward the slot. This puck is going to float in. The Boston Bruins with an empty net goal. It might have been Brandon Carlo that got a piece of it in the neutral zone. Could have been Corrali. Either way, that puck trickled over the line and tucked inside the near post. Bruins up 4-2.
Turned out it was Charlie Coyle. So everybody makes mistakes, including me, because I should have said it was 5-2, but it wasn't that lopsided, and I said it wasn't that close. No, that was very late in the game, empty netter, but the Bruins weren't done yet.
Wagner's got into the far circle, walks in, he scores! The Walpole native rushed down to the...
And so that was the final, 5-2. The Bruins, they defeat the Canes. Well, I've always, found that kind of curious, because Charlotte is closer than Nashville is to the area for all intents and purposes, but nobody roots for the Panthers. Now the Canes are in Raleigh, so that's, that's not necessarily all that relevant. But when it comes to the pro teams, they try to push the Titans as well as the Predators onto us, which I do understand. I've championed this. Let's have a Winter Classic at BMS, Canes and Preds.
10 seconds left. Nordstrom drives it out to center ice, and the horn is going to sound here at TD Garden. The Boston Bruins come from behind, a 4-goal outburst in the third period, aided by 2 power play strikes early in that final stanza, have taken Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Final by a score of 5-2 over the Carolina Hurricanes.
So that was the final, and as I said, it was not as lopsided as the score would indicate. These two teams will be back on the ice on Saturday when they're running the race, but that's kind of an interesting. Okay, do you want to watch the Hurricanes? Do you want to watch the race from Kansas? There you go. Lots of people have wanted to, over the years, watch Albert Pujols play baseball. He did something very historic last night.
Here's the next pitch, and this ball is blasted deep down the left field side, and this one is out of here. Way out of here. Albert with home run number 6 this season. Well, Albert Pujols is in the 600 home run club, the 3,000 hit club, and today he joins the 2,000 RBI club.
In doing that was the hit right there. Actually, it was yesterday afternoon, I guess we should say, but that was the hit that made Albert Pujols the third player all time to get 2,000 career RBIs. Hank Aaron is the all-time leader at 2,297. I knew that. A-Rod is number 2 at 2,086. Albert Pujols is now 39 years old. So I think there stands a chance, perhaps. I mean, depends on how long he can play and such, but there stands a chance he could be the all-time RBI leader. There's also the question of whether or not it is that big of a deal that you're the all-time RBI leader. You know, once upon a time, I thought Hank Aaron having the most RBIs was even bigger than the most home runs. I mean, you know, who cares if you score via a single or a home run? I know that the idea is, well, if there was a runner on second base, the home run would bring in more runs, but hear me out here. Ultimately, this guy drove in more runs. That would seem to be the most important stat, right? 2-run single would beat a solo home run, wouldn't it? So, I mention this because, all right, so maybe this may, Alejandro Pena. Listen to me, Alejandro Pena. I'm still living with the Braves in 91. Alejandro I can't even say this, Prepper. It's not even his name. Albert Pujols. Give me a minute here. Albert Pujols. I've always struggled with his name because the first person named Pujols that I remember, it was Luis Pujols of the Houston Astros, who was a platoon catcher with Alan Ashby back in the day. One year, Luis Pujols hit 227. That was his career high. All right. You can see Albert Pujols does a little bit better as a hitter than Luis Pujols did. But Albert Pujols, 2,000 RBIs, I think, anyway, RBIs. But here's the thing where I say this is slightly tainted. They say that the RBIs have not been kept officially since 1920, but they went retroactively and filled them in, so we now know that Hugh Duffy, when he hit 438 in 1894, drove in 145 runs. But here we go. At fourth place on the list is Barry Bonds, 1,996. Lou Gehrig, the Iron Horse. Boy, this is kind of sad because had he, not suffered from ALS or had he been able to continue playing, he finished at 1,994. 2 more than Babe Ruth. I mean, it did. I mean, yeah, there's 10 games he had in 1939 before, maybe that was the difference. But the thing that I focus in on when they say third guy to have 2,000 RBIs was Barry Bonds. Because for 5 years, Jim Leyland with the Pittsburgh Pirates boneheadedly hit Barry Bonds first where he couldn't drive in any runs. One year he had 58 or so. When they finally moved him down to the order, there was actually people, I don't know if Bonds will ever drive in runs. Now, one thing about RBIs, it's more about where your manager hits you in the order, as is the case with Bonds, than it is this is how good of a hitter you are, although there are people that'll say this is reflected in clutch hitting RBI totals. I get it. Okay. It is maybe not the strictest analytics, but that is a feeling. But obviously, fourth, dare I say fifth, which was where Leland put him, and I could never figure that out. But anyway, had he hit lower in the order, you would have had the opportunity to drive in more runs. But instead, Leland hit him first. All those years. 5 of them. And it wasn't 86 to 89, and even part of 90. It wasn't until 90 when he finally, Leland moved him down in the order. Presto! Bucks win the division. Wow! Who would have thought that? You have the greatest home run hitter of all time, and you put him in a place where he can't drive in any runs. I know. Brady Anderson one year hit 50 home runs, batting leadoff for the Orioles. And did the Orioles win a World Series that year? No. And that was with the DH, where, yes, you were sacrificing certainly the first inning, but it wasn't the sin because you knew the pitcher was hitting in front of Bonds for 4 years, 86, 87, 88, 89. 86, 87, 88, 4 years, part of 90. This is why people who know me, actually, they may remember, I used to call up another sports talk show in town. I think I made it because they weren't getting any calls until I came in. And I would just bash Jim Leland as a Pirates fan. I thought he was the most overrated manager, and I still do. There is only one record Jim Leland has as a manager. You know what it is? Longest managerial tenure in the National League without taking a team to the World Series. 11 years with the Pirates, look it up. And then a bought team, and he, as a mercenary, said, I think I'll manage the Marlins now. He had 4 years left on a contract with the Pirates, and he said, I don't honor that. And a weak commissioner in Bud Selig gave no compensation to the Pirates, unlike, let's say, Bill Parcells moving on to the Jets from the Patriots, in which there was compensation for the Patriots. Think about all of this. Drives me batty. But you want to talk about Pujols driving in 2,000 runs. Bonds would have been there if it wasn't for his boneheaded manager. I won't give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, you have to give like 40 RBIs, maybe a figure, for 4 years. That's 160. And he would have finished just shy of the all-time RBI total of Hank Aaron, if you figure that. Could have possibly made a run. Certainly the Bucks would have been better. The other thing that Leland, just so geniusly did was he played third baseman Darnell Coles in right field for how long, and then he played Barry Bonds, a right fielder at third base, saw him lead the league in errors all the time, bragged about it. His Homer media said, yes, Master Leland, yes, Master Leland. The Pirates would finish as also rans. Finally, in 1990, Leland, after all this time, said, you know what, I think Bobby Bonilla should play his natural position of right field. And besides, we picked up a free agent third baseman, although Darnell Coles, that was his natural position. They had him in right field. Again, he's playing players legitimately in the opposite position they should be in. There was actually a period of time where Jeff King, a natural third baseman, came to the Pirates, and he played first base, while Bonds continued, who was an outfielder first baseman, in fact, continued to play third base and lead the league in errors. And the Pirates would finish 5th. And then Leland figures out, maybe I should play my right fielder in right field, my third baseman at third base. Oh my goodness! They win the division. Imagine that. Jim Leland's a great manager. Yeah, after 5 years of playing players out of position, he is. Here's Benny DiStefano. He's a left-handed thrower. Where should we play him? Catcher. He did that. Most overrated figure I've ever seen in sports is Jim Leland. Absolutely. And there are people that talk about him in the Hall of Fame. Folks, actually, you want to know something? Here's another Leland story here, actually. Seattle Mariners pitcher Yusei Kikuchi. Did you see this? Nearly throws a no-hitter, and they've caught him, numerous camera, pine tar underneath the bill of his cap. He was cheating. He was doing Gaylord Perry only with the pine tar, not the Vaseline. All right? Was never called on it. Never. 27-year-old going to Japan for the show. Like I said, people nearly no-hit the Yankees. And so people are wondering, why wasn't this called? Well, I'll ask you this. Why didn't Tony La Russa call out Kenny Rogers, who couldn't get anybody out in the playoffs for years until he started using pine tar and a foreign substance himself in 2006 for the Tigers, who were managed by Leland. And then he started getting guys out, and nobody called that either. Yet they've never called Leland a cheater, nor have they called Kenny Rogers. All I can figure, I mean, they caught it on tape during the World Series. All I can think of is that Leland and La Russa were good friends, and so, or it's just not. I don't understand why it wouldn't be done. I don't understand why, there wouldn't be, Aaron Boone going out there and just, demanding, check his cap, check his cap, check his cap. They used to do that, all the time. Anyway, one last thing, by the way, I was going back with Albert Pujols. There was a report made earlier that Albert Pujols played for the Johnson City Cardinals. He never did. Just another indication. This bothers me about the Tri-Cities media tremendously. Absolutely bothers me big time. And it is that around here, people will say things just to be nice when it's not even true. Oh, Albert, not Alejandro like I called him before, Albert Pujols, he used to play for the Johnson City Cardinals. No, he never did. Never. But we are so into keeping the status quo or praising things around here that really aren't that much that we will, make things up. And I simply can't believe, I simply cannot believe it. And that's an example. I mean, we will make things up around here. I think the media being such homers and shills sometimes for the local establishment. Of course, I don't do that. That's why people are calling me the best sports talk show host in the market. I'm Marky Bilson on Tri-City Sports Now.
I'm an adventurer.